Hi, this is Dr. Lat Mansor, your host on Health via Modern Nutrition podcast. And today we have Kevin Kreider here, and he is a speaker, actor, model, founder, and CEO of Sons. And we are very happy to have you here today, Kevin.
Thanks. I didn't know you were a doctor.
Yes, not. I've got a PhD,
okay.
I can't give you drugs.
That's a good one. I'm actually not a model anymore.
You know what?
No, I don't do modeling anymore.
Okay, so
yeah.
actor, speaker, and founder and CEO of Sons.
There you go.
There you
Just
go.
Narrowing down my lanes now.
We all need some specialization in our lives.
Definitely. Yeah, actually, modeling kind of just naturally just went away. It was weird because you would have thought being on an international hit show, being a model, more people would want you to model for them, but it didn't do anything. I attribute this to racism, actually. If I was like a white guy, I'm pretty sure I'd be nailing some campaigns.
And we can talk all about that.
Yeah.
And for you guys who don't know, Kevin is on Bling Empire on Netflix for 3 seasons now, and pretty big, pretty famous. So go check it out if you haven't.
Appreciate the plug.
But since we are a health via modern nutrition podcast, my first question to you is there any current health and fitness sort of obsession that you are, obsessed with these days?
Yeah, I started off with personal training, fitness, natural bodybuilding career back in 2006, actually. I graduated with an exercise science degree, got all of the fancy certifications, got all the health nutrition certifications. Then obviously YouTube and all that stuff came out, and I realized oh my God, what am I spending all this money for education for when it's right here? And there's all these people you have access to. So I didn't, and also too, I kind of gave up on trying to get people 6-packs because there's only so many ways I could say, hey man, just eat good and move a little bit, right? And make some time for it. It's there's only so many tricks that you could do. And I was just I just felt unfulfilled. Only helping one person at a time doesn't feel as fulfilling, even though I know...
Not as scalable.
Right, it's not as scalable. And I know the right thing and not even righteous, that's the wrong word. I feel like the altruistic thing to say is, well, as long as I help one person, then maybe my life path and career could be worth it. But I think that's bullshit. We've all helped one person in our life already. So I think that's just, I don't know, the right thing to say. But for me, health and fitness, I was this isn't meaningful to me. So what if I can help somebody lose 100 pounds or get a 6-pack? It's I want more. I want to make more change happen and more meaningful. Because I think for me, just getting a 6-pack was vanity. Wasn't really about health and wellness. And then what happens when you lose a 6-pack? Because then you overeat or something. Your self-esteem is shot. So I came into the health and wellness field very long ago, got into the mental health field by being sober for 7 years. And then now I'm back into, I do need to get my body back into shape because I do want to get back into acting, but I'm not in the shape that I would like to be. So now I find myself finding that healthy balance. Is it the dad bod? Is it the ripped, 6-pack guy I used to be 7 years ago? I'm still trying to figure that out.
Right. And let's unpack a little bit here. And what you said there was so important about health and fitness and about people like us who are just trying to be healthy. I tell people all the time that our bodies are always primary, will always prioritize survivability. Our bodies are not made to go for aesthetics. We just know all these hacks and all these different workouts to make ourselves aesthetically pleasing.
Right.
But ultimately, the body, its priority is going for survivability. That's one. And then the second point I wanted to make is that people associate their value too much onto their bodies, onto their physique. And that's when you said, when people lose their 6-pack, they lose their value because they attach so much value of their being, of their existence into their bodies. And that's what we talk about on this podcast a lot. First and foremost is having a good foundation of lifestyle, like diet, nutrition, exercise, sleep, and all that. But most importantly, mental health as well. And just being proud and happy and worthy just by being, without any attribution to your to your physique, to your career, to how much you make, to how many houses you own.
Well, I definitely find my mental health suffers once I start getting into the single digits of body fat. Like around 8%, I start to get really cranky. I don't feel good. I need more sleep. I need more caffeine. I need more everything just to feel mentally healthy. So I do think there is some type of mental health capacity you lose when you start getting extreme in that. That's my body, at least. I know some people can probably survive off of 6%. But I for me, it's like once I start getting into 8%, I start to get a little wonky.
How did you, so what did you do to even get to the single digit body fat?
You sacrifice a lot. I mean,
Like-
I used to be very, very like strict about everything, and it drove away relationships, friendships, girlfriends, loved ones, family. You sacrifice a lot. And you sacrifice, I think, for me, in the health and wellness field, you only have one lane, you know, and that is bodybuilding, personal training. And even then, I was a shitty personal trainer then. It's like I just didn't really care so much because I was just so hungry all the time and trying to forget about hunger. And you work out, you're tired, then you have all these caffeine upper drinks. It's like, it was crazy, man. So like a lot of people see the finished product, but they don't see what's actually happening underneath the hood.
And social media doesn't help.
Social media sucks for it.
Yeah.
I mean, like social media is such a complicated, confusing algorithm that I got to tell you isn't even perfect. I mean, I look at algorithms as being very favorable to certain people and unfavorable to many other people, even though before the algorithms, we were doing just fine, actually. We were doing great.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing great with 20,000 followers, you know?
It's funny you mentioned about hunger as well, because I literally just finished a 48-hour fast last night. I thought, I've never done such an extended period of fast, so I decided to do it. And just before we started recording, you were telling me about, all these different diets you've done. You've done keto diet, you've done intermittent fasting. Tell us what your experience is with those diets and what sort of benefits, what sort of downfall you've experienced.
So I've tried every diet. I mean, I've tried Mediterranean, keto, Atkins, vegan, vegetarian, meat diet, no meat diet, like pescatarian, all carb diet for a little bit.
You could publish a paper on this.
Well, I mean, I've tried it all because I wanted to have experience in it, which is kind of shocking because a lot of people think that, because I was vegan for 3 months, people still remember me as being vegan. I'm like, no, I'm not vegan anymore. But one thing I found really helpful was intermittent fasting. Mm-hmm. No matter what I've done, like I've tried all those diets I just talked to you about, but my foundation was intermittent fasting. Mm-hmm. So I would fast for at least 16 hours a day. Sometimes I'd fast 20 hours, maybe even 24 hours and just eat once. But I found that to be the most helpful way for me because I think for my style of eating, I like to eat a lot at once. And I don't want to be bothered during the day because I have so much other stuff you got to do, right? And I found it to be not only time-saving, convenience, and it just made me feel a little bit more energetic because once I had a meal then, it's like, oh, man, I feel a difference. I don't feel as energetic. Yeah. And then I start to zone out and zonk out, and it kind of signals that it's the end of the day now whenever I start to eat a meal.
That's the funny thing about intermittent fasting. You literally get more time. You get you save more money because you're eating. Well, not necessarily. Depending on how much calories you're planning to eat. If you're still planning to consume the same amount of calories you would otherwise, then obviously it's the same amount.
Yeah, fasting definitely saves you money. But I don't know about intermittent fasting.
Yeah, fasting, not eating, saves you money because you're
not eating. Definitely saves you money.
Well, I guess if you fast like for 24 hours, I guess you save one whole day of meal.
Yeah. I definitely tried keto for a little bit. What changed my life was knowing what keto really was. For instance, I was underneath the Atkins diet back then, which is high protein. This is back in like 2004 when Atkins was the only no carb diet at the time.
And that's the only fitness sort of diet.
But then once I switched to a keto, which is mostly fat, it definitely made a lot more sense for me. I was like, oh, this feels better. So I did try keto. The only thing I would say for keto why I don't do it so much anymore is because I like carbs. Like I like all these other things. And my whole philosophy now is I'm at an age, I mean, I'm 39. I don't really need to be that ripped or in that weight loss anymore. But I'll still use it, for instance, if like, let's say I have a movie set or something, I'll go keto for maybe a week just to lose all that extra weight, pretty fast. And then I'll just add carbs back into my diet. Even after this, I have a photo shoot. I didn't go keto or anything. I've definitely been a lot more relaxed on my diet, but the one thing that stays is intermittent fasting all the time.
Yeah, I think that intermittent fasting is definitely more doable and more consistent compared to keto diet. And growing up in Malaysia, I can definitely relate. If I'm going back to Malaysia to visit and you ask me to go on a keto diet, that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah,
it's not gonna happen. Like my mom will not understand that. Yeah. She's like, why aren't you touching the rice, right? And I think for people who just want to get into the ketosis, ketotic state, intermittent fasting is as viable of a way, as long as you don't spike your insulin too high when you eat, with a high amount of carbs. So tell us a bit more on the subjective feel when you're either intermittent fasting or a keto diet. Because some people, they do feel that subjective difference when they are on keto. Well, we call it when your brain is on ketones. So
it's weird. It's like I kind of relate to being on a keto diet now as in like sobriety, like being sober. Because like when you're sober, you get this like spiritual awakening. When you do the 12 steps, that is. I mean, just not drinking doesn't give you a spiritual awakening or a feeling. It's the 12 steps that really do that. Same thing with intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, you get this elated feeling in the beginning, and it's amazing. It feels great. But the problem that happens is it starts to just become normal. So if you're somebody who's chasing a feeling, then yes, you probably won't get that feeling the same way it was again the first month or two that you did it. It just becomes your baseline, your norm.
Because your body adapts to it.
Yeah, everybody gets acclimated to things.
Absolutely.
I moved into a new apartment. It's my dream apartment. I'm acclimated to it. Doesn't mean I don't appreciate it. I have to show appreciation. But same thing with keto diet. It's like that focus, that laserness focus and that clarity, it just becomes the norm. But then what ends up happening is you start to notice when you don't do it. Yeah. And that's not the norm. Then you're like, oh my God, I don't like feeling like this. Same thing with meditation. Meditation's tricky because after you do it for a year consistently, you notice when you don't do it then. And that's when that's how I compare intermittent fasting.
That's such a great insight because Lee's here. Okay, cool. We'll pause that. I'll pause that thought.
30 seconds. Sure. It's a good place to break too.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's why I want to have my own podcast.
I'm good what?
Conversationalist.
Me?
He is.
I'm like,
I mean, you're great too, but like,
thanks. Yeah, it's like, you're great too.
Yeah.
But Kevin also.
But you should be. You're a host of podcast.
Bitch, I better be. The whole team is fucking eyeing me. Like, how's podcast doing?
How many views do you guys get?
I was just presenting some data this morning, actually. This morning, as of this morning, we have launched about 9 episodes. Today is 9 episode. First month, we're getting about almost 20K listens and download. And that's only the podcast. For clips, we are getting about 100K views.
So you guys are almost at advertising budget then?
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, that's what we're trying to get to next year with our own.
Yeah, no, happy to trade notes as well. Yeah. When you're ready to, I'm happy to share whatever I learned.
How much is this for one?
So he said it's like if you just rent the place, I think it's $100 per hour. Okay. If you do the whole production, it's about like, I think I have to ask him because ours add on because they do like publishing and all that stuff as well. Mm-hmm. So you probably have to. Exactly.
Yeah, I'd probably outsource that to
trust me, it's just easier because otherwise you'll be sitting there, you'll be like, the thing is, we are always more critical about ourselves than other people's work. So when you're editing your own video, you're going to be like sitting there for the whole day and you're like, I don't like that part. And then you end up having like 20 minutes out of like an hour and a half interview. Yeah. So
overall,
especially a person like you who's so used to being on screen, you're going to see yourself. You're like, I don't like how I look or like blah, 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 like.
No.
Yo. We started.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, we're gonna continue, and then I'll come. Okay. So it's very interesting that you talked about, the difference between when you're on intermittent fasting and when you're not, and when you're on meditation and when you're not, and you feel the difference when you're off, instead of in the beginning, you will feel the difference when you're on. Mm-hmm. So that talks a lot about our bodies, because we are such creatures of ultimate adaptation. And a couple of episodes ago, I interviewed Ben Azadi, and I'll be interviewing Dr. Mindy Pelt and Dr. Pompa, and they talk a lot about fasting and feasting, and how while intermittent fasting has been really good and keto diet has been really good to help with metabolic health, over a long time, when your body starts to adapt to it, you sort of lose that edge. And in order to sort of reset it, all you need to do is introduce something different. And that speaks a lot of volume when it comes to microbiome as well.
Well, it also kind of makes me wonder too, and you can attest to this, but sometimes you have to get off the diet. Mm-hmm. So you reset the clock and then you go back to it, you might feel something again. It's almost like working out. You can't just work out every single day. Like I remember when I first started weight training and somebody was like, you got to take a week off after you train.
Are you crazy?
I'm like, what? I'm going to lose my gains. Like I'm going to lose 20 pounds of muscle. I'm not going to remember how to bench press. And they're like, no, you're going to be much better, stronger. And it was true. Like when I came back, obviously you don't have that pump as much. Oh, and then the worst was when they told you to get off supplements for a month. I was like, no, I'm going to take my creatine until I die, right? And then you go back to it and your body absorbs it better, and it's just so much better for you.
I mean, rightfully so. I mean, creatine is one of the most established, researched supplement that has shown to work, in both men, women, in different age groups. And I actually did this myself. I was on creatine for about 3 years, I think. And then I got off about 6 months ago, and I just recently reintroduced it.
So much better,
within
right?
the first week.
Yeah.
My strength, it literally increased by like 10%.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes with life. There are seasons where you're feast and famine. December for entertainment, famine, nothing. You're lucky if you get anything. It's mostly just celebrations and talking about the next year. But then, New Year starts, it's feast, right? Like you got to take time off and breaks. And me being an addictive personality mindset, like I hate the slow times. I hate the off periods. I hate the rest periods. But as I'm getting older, I'm realizing like, oh my God, I kind of need it once in a while.
You got to stop, relax, and rest.
Got to relax and rest sometime. I still don't know really how to do it yet. My girlfriend teaches me a lot.
It's always good to have a support system.
100%.
Yeah, for sure. So, we talked a lot about physical fitness, physical exercise, and just physique in general. And I know you touched a bit on your sobriety journey, and I want to, really focus on the importance of mental health as well. Walk us through your journey through sobriety, from the beginning till now.
So I was constantly always looking for some mental health solutions. And what I've come across is that sobriety to me is mental health, actually.
It is.
A lot of people think it's just stop drinking or stop doing whatever your addictive personality is. But actually what sobriety and 12 steps is it shows you the things that make you want to do that. And then you have a solution to it. So I think there's a lot of benefits to mental health when it comes to 12-step programs, just in general. It doesn't even have to be with alcohol.
What's the 12-step?
Oh my gosh. 12 steps is 12 steps, right? Like it's a very simple program, but it's really hard to imply because it's spiritual by nature. So a lot of people don't want to do it because, they have their own spirituality like yoga or the universe or nature or tree hugging, and nothing against tree hugging. But I just think a lot of times people shy away from that because they find that their own spirituality might be the thing for them, which is not what we're saying. You got to give that up. It's just that you have to find something of your own understanding. And so my trip in spirituality and alcoholism and everything, I think really began when I was really young. I don't know if you're really born with it. I think it comes from just life experience. Like I always felt like I was different and the outcast anyway. And my thing is I felt not like I was Asian because I grew up in a white family. I didn't feel like I was Asian when I drank. It was that one common bonding experience. The way I can relate it to is like in Philadelphia, if you don't like sports, you can't relate to anybody, you know? But the moment you're an Eagles fan, it doesn't matter what race, what color you are, your gender, your weight, people love you. You got one thing in common. Alcohol was that one thing in common for me. But it made me feel relaxed where I could think I was being myself. But the problem was I can't always be like that. So that's where my addiction came in. Like I always wanted to feel freedom, joyous, all that stuff. Focused, right? Like not have this anxiety and discontent that's always happening, right? And I thought alcohol was my solution. And so then it stopped at one point where I became like the Asian Hulk. That's what people called me.
Asian Hulk.
Yeah. Then I moved to New York. My alcoholism got worse, and so did my depression and anxiety. Lost my hair from alopecia areata to stress-induced hair loss, or at least that's what they think. There's no proven science behind it yet, but it's an autoimmune disease or reaction. And then came back to Philly, got a girlfriend, loved her to death, but my alcoholism was in the way. Realized I needed to get sober on December 13th, 2015, and never looked back. But, you know, in the meantime, me and my girlfriend broke up at that time. And then now, almost a year from now, we've been back together. 6.5 years later, thank you. And that's basically, to me, what sobriety is. It's about second chances in life, whether it's love, career, anything. Because now I look at my life now and I'm like, holy shit, 7 years of sobriety. And look at all the things I've been able to do. You know, before sobriety, I was just winning bodybuilding competitions and, by the way, paying for it. So it's not like it's a real victory. And then I would, you know, personal train day in, day out. I had nothing, you know. And then I come here, get sober, and I'm like, man, I get to grace the stages of like TED Talks and Huffington Post, Netflix, you know, start my own beverage company, get to hang out with people that I've never imagined being with, you know, like going in, you know, galas for entertainment and acting. I'm like, this is such a wild life now. And so like for me, I realized, I mean, it's because of my mental health. I was unemployable. And if I was employable, nobody wanted to work with me again because I was so mentally squirrely. So I just feel like mental health will help a lot of people, and wherever you are in your life. So even if you're the CEO of a company and doing really well, it can help you get further. I'm actually jealous of those people who have shitty mental health and still can succeed. I mean, can you imagine what you could do if you were mentally healthy?
That's a good point. That's a really good point. And it's funny that, you know, how life works, because you never know what or when opportunities come and knock on your door. It could come very early in your life. It could come very late, and it might need a life-changing experience. But when it comes, you can't even stop it.
100%. I mean, like I've been blessed with, you know, there's circles of life, right? You know, family, health, finance, career, romance. For some reason, I've always had my health, my family, friends. But for some reason, career and finance and romance was always the slowest things for me. But now romance isn't, because I got my girlfriend now, and you know she is the love of my life. I know that. I mean, I'm 39. I've been through a lot. I know, and she keeps me very grounded and focused, and just she's my life partner. The career and the finance parts have been the slowest for me. But some people, it's the career and finance that's great, but their health shit. They don't really have any friends. They can't. They have lots of one night stands, and they think that's romance, but that's, you know, one night stand. Yeah. But there's something empty. So like, people don't have it all at once. It's a slow journey for some people, and for some reason, I don't know why, my career and finance has been the last lingering things in my recovery, in my life. But you know, I was blessed with health. I mean, that's for sure. Blessed with my family, I mean, we were so close, everything. So I think mental health can help you get all of it. It's just not going to be all at one time.
And I think what's important is also for people to realize that at this point in your life, you may not think or may not see yourself somewhere in the future. I mean, nobody knows what the future holds, but when the time comes, you will know. Like, I have gone through this myself. Like, growing up in Malaysia, I was born and bred. You know, when I was 17 years old, I had to go through my sort of nationwide exam, and then we have to, you know, go to university. And I remember my mentor, who's my cousin, H.V.M.N, told me, you know, I want you to go to Oxford or Cambridge. And I literally said to him, people like me don't go to Oxford or Cambridge. I would be happy if I can just go overseas and go abroad and experience that. And I did. I went to Nottingham University in the UK, did my undergrad in biotechnology. And then at that point, I was like, well, I've been in UK for a while. I want to try a different country. And that was my first time thinking about US. So it was my first time coming to US. I did my master's in Columbia University in New York because I was like, where in the US? I have no idea anything about US. So I was like, New York seems fun. I literally just Googled best university in New York and I applied. I was lucky to get in, you know. And once I got to Columbia, it really changed my mind as to, okay, maybe I can now apply to Oxford. Maybe I can give myself a chance. And when I got accepted into Oxford to do my PhD in physiology, anatomy, and genetics, I was over thrilled. And people thought I always had my life together and planned all of this together. And I can tell you with, you know, 100% certainty that I'm taking one day at a time. And I apply and just hope for the best. You know, when you apply for university, like, you don't know if you're going to get in. Like, no one can be that sure. You can be as confident as you can, but it's up to, you know, whoever's reading that.
It was the same, man plans and God laughs. I mean, I planned to be an actor back in 2008, you know, and didn't realize I'd be a reality TV guy and an entrepreneur now. Now getting back into acting, like, I didn't think it would be now. Like, I gave up on it probably 5 years ago, actually. I mean, I remember I was in my studio apartment back in Philadelphia. I just broke up with my girlfriend. Didn't know what I was going to do. I wasn't really thrilled commuting back and forth from New York again. I wanted to pursue acting bad. But I was so beaten up from pursuing it for 8 years, you know, like, there was nothing. Like, I lost everything trying to pursue something in New York, training my ass off, like, being very disciplined about it, going in, booking stuff, then losing my hair, losing the things that I booked because they were like, we can't hire. We want somebody who has hair. You came in with hair. We want somebody who has hair. So it's like I lost everything,
yeah.
even with my modeling career. Came back and I just started to try to figure out what I was going to do. And I remember a friend of mine, and it wasn't in bad intentions, but he told me, he's like, you're not an actor. Your gift is health and fitness, personal training, all that stuff. And I was like, I think that's good because I know how to do it for myself, but I think it's a vehicle to get to where I want. You know, like, now we hear in the health and wellness field, it's about performance, right? It's performance fitness, you know, it's not about the looks, it's about performance. And I'm like, you know, I think you can do both. You know, you can look good and perform really well.
Yeah.
I mean, and so I actually, even though that guy was trying to look out for me, it wasn't the right advice. And I believed it because I was like, maybe I am. But that also goes with environment. We lived in Philly. There aren't actors there. And if there are, they're like extras, you know what I mean? They're not Hollywood actors. That's what I wanted to be. Mainstream, like all that stuff. And so I felt like that was me giving up. And I did probably lose a few opportunities, you know, because I was refusing to audition. I was refusing to do these things. It's like, no, I got to give up acting. I do have to stay focused. But that's people telling you what you need to be. And you know yourself better. Like, I'm multifaceted. Like, I love acting, entertaining. I love business. I love sobriety. I love health and fitness.
Exactly.
I can bring all of that on.
You're not one-dimensional.
There are some people who are. There are some people who are like, nope, I'm a scientist. That's all I can do. But then, you know, you love podcasting, so you can do both. Mm-hmm. I love both, but I thought I could only be one thing. So then back in Philadelphia, I remember wanting to act so bad, and I just gave up on it. And then it led me to doing more speaking about Asian masculinity, the problems of being an Asian actor in Hollywood, where white people get to tell you what you want to be, or the stereotypes tell you what you should be,
Right.
and it's only because we're poorly represented. You know, we're the kung fu artists with the accents, the foreigners, the dork, the geek all the time. All the time. There's nothing wrong with that. There's dorks and geeks in every single race. But when that's all you're portrayed as, that's all people believe you to be. I noticed the same fallacy with people who are sober or believe in mental health. All you see in TV or in film is that they got shitty problems. You don't want anything to do with them. But you don't see all the good shit that people are doing. You don't see the successes. You only see them relapsing or they're rock bottom and they're intense. And I'm like, this is a poor representation. And so that's why I took from what I learned from, you know, Asian representation and applying it to sobriety and mental health. And it's like, it's a game changer. People are dying for this, you know?
Yeah.
People want to be represented. There's millions of people, maybe even billions, who are in recovery of some sort that want to be properly represented, don't want to feel ashamed. But yet we feel ashamed because we don't have no good representation about across the board. So that's how I got the opportunity to even be in Bling Empire. Because I was advocating for proper, good representation as an Asian male. I demanded it. Yeah. And producers found me, and that's how it all started.
And as an Asian myself, I may not be Asian American, but as an Asian myself, definitely appreciate the representation for sure. And this is not the first time I've heard about this as well in terms of misrepresentation or just general lack of. I've got a really good friend, James Liao. He's an actor and he went to Juilliard. You don't just go into Juilliard, and he's super talented. He's been in many shows, but he was, I knew him back maybe more than a decade ago now. He's in New York, and he talks about the discrimination he has been facing just from casting, from like audition. You haven't even made it there yet. It just, that role that you're given is so narrowed down that is stereotypically Asian that, hey, look, Asia is a very big continent. It's the biggest continent. And we can do way more things than just being the scientist, the doctor, the geek, the kung fu master. And this is, just part of who we are.
It is. I mean, it's like, I love the inclusivity that we're all doing right now. But I mean, we speak about it in the Asian community that while we're trying to be inclusive, we're actually being exclusive now. We're excluding other races. We're excluding even races within the Asian community. And it's not contributing to our growth. That's what I love about mental health and sobriety, is that it doesn't know any race. And that's what I love about it, because if you think it has to do with race, you're wrong. And that's where I think I have more of a passion to talk about that now, because the problem that I have with the Asian community when I speak about it now is, I feel like I'm speaking to the choir, and the ones that really need to hear it, the algorithms on social media won't show it. So it's like, what are you going to do? You feel unmotivated to want to post anything, just knowing that, the algorithms don't believe that people want to see it. But it's called conditioning. Learned this from Tony Robbins.
There you go.
When you start showing people something, they're conditioned to see it more. And you got to show different sides. So, I don't believe what algorithms are perfect at all. They're actually imperfect. They reward the dumbest things, because that's what it believes people want. But that's actually not. We're looking so hard, I think. And I think you got to give consumers, they're smarter than we think, but we're making them dumber now. So it's like there's a lot of social responsibility I think algorithms even need to have,
And one really interesting thing that you just mentioned is, how we try to be inclusive, but in doing so, we become exclusive. And that is so true for any minority group, for any even in LGBT community, in different racial groups. When you push one subgroup into, the corner and really feel that they do not have any privilege at all, they bounce back harder, and they feel that they have to be louder than normal and not really blend in. And that's where it becomes like almost exclusive, and you sort of like go into territory of like hating other groups and wanting like,
well, I think
justice.
I think that's the problem with society today, is we have the problem of being right fighters. Like, we just want to be right. we saw this on social media, so we're right and you're wrong because you have a different opposing viewpoint. Instead of being like, why don't we just talk about it? You know, have a little bit of empathy and listen to someone, because you might actually learn something. You know, there's something in the big book of, Alcoholics Anonymous that's interesting, is that, we have to look for where the religious people were right, because a lot of people who go into recovery, 12-step programs are like atheist and agnostic, because usually it's religion that fucks them up to begin with. And then they, come back to, the 12 steps and they're like, oh my God, I see the word God all over the place. They think they have resentment towards religion. And they're like, we don't. You can find it for yourself. But you still got to look for where other religions were right, because they're not a religion. AA or Alcoholics Anonymous or 12-step programs. It's not a religion. And so that's where I think where people could learn from 12 steps. It's like we have our own thing, but we should listen to other people to see where they're right. We don't claim monopoly on something, like people get sober in different ways.
And empathy is such a powerful thing.
Empathy is, and that's why I think the world lacks is empathy. And like they say, there is some truth, correct information. And I got to tell you, algorithms do not portray correct information.
And everyone wants to be right.
Everybody wants to be right still.
Yeah.
So that's where the world is that right now. I wish it could be different.
Speaking of the 12-step program, right? We on this show we've spoken quite a few times on relationship to addiction, relationship to food especially, right? The unhealthy relationship to food, the addiction, and how it's not just a behavioral change. It's more of, mental health. It's more of the association of food to the dopamine spike, to the, real quick satisfaction that you get because you're stressed, because you're doing other things that you don't want to do, and rather than doing that you want to eat instead, and also the reward system that we grow up with, sweets and all that. In the 12-step program, how did they teach you recognize and also address that sort of relationship with addiction, with alcohol?
So this is my interpretation. I feel like if you're that highly addicted to something, and you're obsessive, because that's the obsessive craving, that's the addiction. What we try to do in the 12-step program is to try to get yourself out of yourself. And the way you do it is by being interested in other people and by helping other people. And that gives a reward system in itself. And you probably know this, but I can't remember the studies a long time ago, but the epinephrine, norepinephrine, the adrenaline, the other chemicals that make you feel comfortable when you're cuddling with somebody that are longer lasting, oxytocin,
yeah.
They last longer, right? And helping people is the same thing. So I think we actually do things in a different way, right? We start helping other people, start focusing and thinking of other people, thinking how we can help other people, service of other people. But I think we actually just live in a narcissistic, selfish world where you don't do that, and then that's where the phenomenon of craving comes from. You want to eat because you want to feel that way when you help somebody. But then when you help somebody, you're like, they're taking advantage of me, and you're like, damn, dude, you got nothing to offer, actually. Like, that's the trick of the mind, right? Like, I mean, before I got sober, think of this. This is normal for most people is, I'm going into a meeting, 12-step recovery meeting. I'm like, man, I can probably help these people out. Right? Like, but you're going into a recovery program. Yeah. It's actually quite the opposite. But I'm just so used to and trained to only think selfishly, narcissistically, that of course I think I'm going to go in there and help people. And what's painful is the ego, the identity of self. Letting go of that idea that you aren't that person actually, but you could be someday. That's hard to give up, because even Tony Robbins says changing your identity is one of the hardest things that anybody can ever do. But if you change your identity, you change your life immediately.
Absolutely. And a lot of these negative identities are being built gradually over time, that it sneaks in and you don't even realize. For example, when you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't like yourself, you start self-hatred, and over time you start hating yourself more and more, and that becomes your identity.
Exactly.
And that reflects out as to how you behave, how you speak, how you treat other people, and how selfish you
Totally.
excuse me, to how selfish you can be. And I think a lot of us are so wrapped into the idea of being the superhero and wrapped into the idea of I want to be right and I want to help people. But I think it's very important for us to stop for a second, step back and really ask ourselves, are we helping other people, or is this desire of helping other people out of sympathy, out of us wanting to be a superhero, or just us wanting to help people? I think the last part here is the most important, is that to help people just for the sake of helping people, just because we know we are in the power to do so, and do it without expectation of a reward.
So I'll relate it to our 12-step program. It doesn't even have to be that big. It could just literally be calling your mom. It could literally be calling a friend and just talking to them about their day. You're helping someone.
There you
right?
go.
Like literally, I think we think it has to be so big. Like I gotta help you. You know, I gotta help you move products. I gotta, you know what I mean? It's like, no, that's not the help we're talking about. You just gotta be useful and helpful.
Sometimes people just need someone to listen to.
It's true. So that's why I say with like even the eating thing, it's like we're eating our emotions away literally, and we're trying to change the way we feel. And the way you could easily change the way you feel is by simple actions. Like I'm not in an Overeaters Anonymous program, but I know for alcohol, like if you feel like drinking, you call someone. You know, you ask them about their day. You automatically feel better. You know, and so that's where you change that behavior. So you change the pattern of, oh my God, I feel hungry, I want to eat something. Instead of just eating it, then you do this instead. Instead of picking up that cake, you pick up the phone and call someone. That's all it is, right? But there's a saying, like the phone sometimes is the heaviest thing I've ever lifted. And it's true. For some reason, you don't want to make that call, because then you get all wrapped up in your head. You're like, what is this person going to think of me? Like, I haven't talked to them for a while. Like, are they even going to pick up? Should I leave a message? Like, all this stuff goes in your head. You're like, just shut up and pick up the phone and keep trying. Like, it's not that hard. We live in a first world country. It's not that hard to pick up a phone, but it is at the same time. And so I think for somebody who wants to eat, you just got to be useful. You got to be helpful to other people. It doesn't even mean you have to give them money. You shouldn't, actually. I wouldn't recommend it. It's just have an ear, have some advice, and just be kind.
It's really interesting what Kevin just mentioned here as well. And, you know, instead of picking up the food, you're picking up the phone. And by doing that action, giving yourself that dopamine hit, giving yourself, relating that action to positive reinforcement, instead of you sort of like dissociating yourself from the association of food and dopamine and the food and the positive reinforcement. That's such a powerful thing to do, and it sounds so easy, but as you said, it's not as easy as it sounds.
It's not, because doing nothing is actually easier.
Absolutely.
I mean, and we live in a world, God bless
I'm
us.
happy in my comfort zone.
Right, and we can do that. That's called a first world country. You know, we have the luxury of doing that. You know, I don't think all these addictions really exist in third world countries, you know, because they're still wrapped up in trying to survive. You know, survival is their first thing. Survival isn't our first thing here. It's more. The survival of more here. And so more is an obsession of the mind and addiction. So we probably live in an addictive society.
I absolutely agree, because growing up in Malaysia, we learn about anorexia in school. We know what it is. Bulimia, we know what it is. Never experienced it, never seen anybody in Malaysia when I was growing up, because we were like, you know, food is, you know, it's on table, you eat it, right? Your Asian parents, Asian mom, you're like, you're full? No, you're not full. You know, let me tell you, you know, you can eat some more. But coming to like developed countries, and then I see more and more of these eating disorders, I'm like, wow, this is really first world country problem. When you have an abundance of resource and you have all these problems now. I'm a strong believer of happiness being really tight, like just feeling the feeling of happy, of being happy, tied to metabolic health. I.e., what do you think of someone who, you know, may not be metabolically healthy, but then they say they're happy? What do you think of that?
Either way, you're happier. So it's almost like that saying of, what's true? Is there a God, or is there not? Right? We'll never know, or maybe you'll know with happiness and science someday. But I know I just feel better when I believe in a higher power. That's the belief in itself. Now, do I actually look different, or am I don't even give a shit. But the thing is, if you believe you're happier and you're metabolically going to be happier, there's no loss. You only win in that. So to me, it's like trying to find out the science behind it. It's kind of useless. If it really works, why not?
Hey, there's a lot of ancient practices, like even meditation, right? It's only recently that science started to show that meditation increase focus, increase, recovery, increase just overall endocrine system. But it has been practiced for hundreds and hundreds, even thousands of years. So we know that it works. And there are some things that science is still catching up on because we just don't have that technology nor the understanding to really unpack what those practices bring. It's a powerful thing because, you got to find your rhythm. You got to find what lifestyle that works for you, and ultimately do it because you're doing it for yourself. You're not doing it because somebody tells you that this is good for you. You're not doing it because somebody tells you that you should be this person, but you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah, and that's the irony about all of this that we're talking about. It's like completely selfless. You're doing it because it makes your life better, makes you feel better. So it does go back to yourself, obviously. But why not do something for other people while it makes you feel good and it's better for you at the same time? Whereas it's the opposite. Sometimes in this world is you do stuff to harm people selfishly and it doesn't feel good. So not only are you not leaving the world a better place and other people in a better place, but you feel worse. It just doesn't make sense to me anymore.
Yeah. So as we are sort of closing in on time here, any closing remarks you would like to share? I know we've talked a lot, and thank you, of course, for sharing your sobriety journey, your health and fitness journey, your insights that you've learned, all your experience, and even Netflix. How do you even get on Netflix, right?
Yeah. I know a lot of people ask me if I audition and stuff, and it's no, you were. A lot of people get discovered for different reasons. Some because they have a viral content or whatever. Mine was because I had content that was meaningful to a community that needed help. Did
they reach out to you, or did you reach out to them?
I got reached out a lot when I spoke about Asian male beauty and masculinity, and it seems so typical now because in modern day world we have so much representation in the Asian community now. But I'm talking about 5.5 years ago. This is pre Crazy Rich Asians, and this is pre Bling Empire. So we didn't have that. So it was very new, and people were like, wow, I can't believe people talk about this. And this is exactly my life. So that's why I really recommend people who want to succeed. There's a saying, right? Attraction, not promotion. I disagree with a little bit. You got to do a little bit of both. Like you have to attract and you should promote. But I think attracting the right people is really it. Like I've never gone out and was like, I want to be on this reality show called Bling Empire. Like I didn't even know about it. Nobody knew about it. It wasn't even a concept.
So was it
just an idea.
a concept that was conceived by your group of people, or was it Netflix?
No, it was a concept from the book Crazy Rich Asians, and then one of the producers who I was friends with when I came to LA was developing this, and then it became something. But I do believe the show happened because of the cast. We were a very close group of friends at the time. I came in truthfully just wanting proper, good representation of an Asian male in a space that needed it so bad. I mean, I go to Emmys for unscripted TV. I'm still the only Asian guy, so it still needs a lot of work. We haven't gotten awarded anything. You present a couple things because you feel like you're kind of in this box that they're like, wow, we need Asians represented. But it's like, why don't you actually just make more of it then? And why don't we celebrate it more? And I'm not even saying about all Asian reality shows anymore. You just need to put more Asians, period.
Who are not stereotypes.
Exactly. So I think you just got to do things that are good for other people. Like when I went on that, TED Talk and helping them post video, like I knew it was going to be good for me, but it helps a shit ton of people too. And it helped create this movement. And if you can do that, it'll help other people, and you too will be asked to do a lot of stuff. That's the attraction, not the promotion part.
It's just so important for people like
I didn't reach out to you to be on this, right?
Can you pull your mic a little bit higher up? Sorry.
Yeah, like I didn't ask to be on this. You know, you reached out. It was attraction.
I did.
You know?
I did. I mean, I watched the show and you talked about your journey, especially in the last season. And I thought, and Kevin started Sons here, an alcohol sort of replacement. And I thought it would be an interesting story to share. And of course, I do strive for diversity on our H.V.M.N show. Male, females, all different races, and also just expertise in the area, but also like their personal story. I believe that everyone has their own really interesting personal story, and your story in particular, and a lot of people already know that already on the show, but to really get to dive in and ask you personal question around it, it's so enlightening. And the insights you've shared today that I can relate to, it has been quite an experience, so thank you.
No, welcome, man.
So for our listeners and our viewers, where can they find you, your company? Please, your floor is yours.
You can just find me on kevinkreider.com on all platforms. And my beverage company, Sans by Taejin Beverage, is on doyousans.com and also social media platforms. We're actually really excited to share more in 2023. We literally just launched October 5th, and it's been an explosive start. So we're excited for 2023.
Amazing. And by the way, guys, I've tried this and mixed it with Ketone-IQ. It actually tastes quite decent.
It's a good mixer.
Everything. I made Kevin try the shot of Ketone-IQ before this. So, he has been on keto diet. He knows how that feels. So how do you feel like after, taking Ketone-IQ? Do you feel any different?
I mean, I always feel different after a podcast, especially a good one. So
I hope this
it's a
fits.
good one.
Okay. This you're not just saying that on camera.
No, I don't feel tired. If it was a bad podcast, I'd feel tired right now.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, again, thanks for coming in. And it has been a pleasure to meet you in person.
Yep. Pleasure, man. Thanks.
Thank you.